What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on Rangers Central. And today, this might end up being like a mini podcast type video. I have no idea how long this is going to go because there is honestly a lot of points still to hit on. Tomorrow's the NHL draft, which I'm pumped up for. So everyone that is interested in watching my live reaction and everything, I'm not sure if I'm going to have guests on or not yet. I will figure all that stuff out. But either way, I will be live tomorrow, probably around 6:30 since the draft starts at 7 to, just talk to you guys before the draft starts a little bit. And then, of course, get into the draft itself and get our reactions, my reaction, whoever, to the draft. And then, of course, free agency coming up. And there's still a lot. And I'm sitting here still wondering what is going to happen within the next even 24 hours with this Rangers team. And I'm just sitting here clueless. Like, I have zero clue what direction Chris Drury's looking to go in because we're hearing rumors every day about guys being shopped. We're hearing rumors about wanting to trade up in the draft, hearing rumors about Lingren extensions, Kane, Gensel, and other free agents. We're hearing all these different rumors, and I'm just trying to sit here and figure out what direction the Rangers are going to go in because obviously there needs to be changes after the fact that the past three seasons, I should say three, the past 3 seasons have not gone over well. And like the conversation has been, you're good enough to get to the Final Four, but what's going to get you over the hump? What is going to get you to take that next step? And the discussion's obviously been 5v5 offense. The discussion's been moving dead weight. And like, that's really the main point that I've been hitting on in every video and every single tweet that I put out is cut the dead weight. And that's where, like, I don't know. Maybe we'll start with some of the dead weight stuff and then shift to the draft stuff. I don't know. I really have no structure this because some of them kind of correlate to each other. But before we jump into everything, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Turn on your notifications. I'm not going to waste too much time in the intro. I think that I will start. I'll actually start off with the draft because I have the bullets in order, and I think it makes the most sense to hit on this point first with the draft. In terms of what the Rangers I think do tomorrow, that's another thing I have no clue because, like I said, it correlates to what could happen with certain guys being traded. We're hearing the rumors of Kakko potentially being attached to the 30th pick to move up in the draft. We're hearing rumors that Trouba might have positive trade value. So could that fetch you something in the draft tomorrow where I don't think he's going to fetch you a first round pick, but say you get like, I don't know, a second or a third. Maybe you package that with 30 to move up in the draft. Maybe you package a second in Kakko to move up in the draft or something, and maybe you have 2 first-round picks instead of 1. I'm not sure, but in terms of what direction they go in tomorrow, I still am leaning towards them going with a defenseman because of how barren the defensive system is, and I know that you could argue, well, they don't really have a lot of centers. That I agree with. I agree that they don't have enough in the center pool, especially with McConnell, Barker, and guys of that nature. It really ends at McConnell, Barker, to be honest with you, and then Edstrom. But those guys, you're realistically looking at them being like 4C options. Maybe one of them makes a surprise leap to be a serviceable 3C. I don't know. But all I know is that it's barren in both the center position and on defense. And last year, they probably would have ideally got a center or defenseman in the draft. It just Gabe Perreault happened to fall in their lap. And at that point, you have to take the kid. I mean, how are you going to pass up on Gabe Perreault at that point? So I'm not faulting them for it, but it did, of course, come at the expense of now you're sitting in a draft where it's like, all right, do you go center? Do you go defense? Because I don't think a winger is the option unless, again, a scenario like with Gabe Perreault happens where Cole Yzerman's the guy that's looking like he's going to drop. I don't know if he drops to 30, but if you are packaging Kakko and 30 to maybe jump the Islanders to prevent them from getting a Cole Yzerman, I don't hate the idea of that because that's a guy I'd want to keep out of the division, number 1, and 2, he would put the puck in the damn net for this team. So I wouldn't hate the idea of going in that direction, but I do think realistically, you're probably going to look at them drafting like the guys that I mentioned when I went live with Statboy Steven, which, by the way, go check that show out if you haven't, because that was a really, insightful one when it comes to the draft. So I highly recommend that one before the draft tomorrow night if you want to, touch up on your draft knowledge a bit, because I still have some to touch up on. But I think if they're going to go the defenseman route, I still am sold on 3 guys in particular that I think the Rangers are going to go with: 2 defensemen, 1 center. I think priority number 1, I think target number 1 for them, I still believe is, I still think it's Alec. Like, I do think that Alec's the guy that they're going to try and get, assuming he, of course, ends up at 30 in their lap there. I think that's the guy they're going to want because they're familiar with the program. They're familiar with, the type of player. Like, the comparable is Brain Schneider with the guy. And why not get a safe pick there, a guy that will probably be an NHL defenseman for you someday? And that's where the argument comes into, which I know I'm skipping back to the point that I was just talking about with center versus defenseman. For me personally, I think that you could find way more upside with defensemen late in the first round versus centers. And obviously, again, you don't know what any of these guys are going to become. It's magic beans at the end of the day with these guys. But I think a safer route is going with a defenseman in terms of a guy that I think could potentially play higher in the lineup, where with a center, I don't know. Like, I don't know if a center late in the first round, you're going to find a guy that plays higher than a 3C role, which you take a 3C all day of the week, twice on Sunday on or at the 30th pick. But do you want that, or do you want a defenseman, especially considering how much they're paying their blue line right now, where at least with the bottom 6 forwards you have coming up, you have some wiggle room there to potentially spend a little cash there on, and just in general with the pipeline, you have potentially some cash you could spend on a 3C, hopefully not Barclay Goodrow-esque with a contract, but you have an option there. And then, of course, what's the deal with Phil Peedle? Like, if Phil Peedle's staying for the next 3 years on this contract, then I'm sorry, what's the need of drafting a center in the first round other than the sake of getting a guy that, like, maybe you want to move Heedle to the wing and then have the new guy you draft be the 3C? I don't know, but to me, you have your centers locked up either way, 1 and 2 for the next few years, whether we like it or not. Zibanejad and Trocheck are probably going to be the 1-2 down the middle for the next few years. But outside of that, like, you're looking at Heedle maybe staying, looking at guys like McConnell, Barker coming through the pipeline, looking at guys like Edstrom coming up through the pipeline. So, I don't know. To me, I would just rather them go the route of going with a defenseman. But sorry, I just got distracted because Dakota Joshua just signed a 4-year extension with a $3.25 million AAV. That is a gross overpay for Dakota Joshua, I won't lie. But to get back on track with this, I still think a defenseman's where they're going to go. And to get back to the point, I think Alec's the guy they want the most. Again, I have no insight or sources to back that up. Anything that I say is just purely off gut feeling. And my gut feeling is Alec's the guy they would like the most. And especially considering, like, we've seen Drury drafts enough to know that he likes North American guys. He likes guys that have some size to them. He likes guys that, that's just his style. Like, that's just mostly his MO. He likes getting North American guys that have size to them. Like, that's really all it comes down to. And Alec fits those boxes. And then the other guy I think maybe they go with is EJ Emery if, Alec's not available on the board, or maybe they do like EJ Emery more. I think that those two are at least safe picks. And I think someday I can envision a Charlie Alec or an EJ Emery slotting onto your second pair, which, again, with that, you take it all day, every day at the 30th overall pick. And that's where I think they're going to lean. The only forward that I think they're going to consider at 30, unless there's a drastic drop in with any of the guys that are projected to go higher, I think the only guy that I think they consider is Dean Latorno, which we've talked about ad nauseum, because of the fact that, one, the guy's 6'8", I think, 6'9", and we know Chris Drury loves that. The fact that on top of that, North American, a guy that's gonna go to college as well, so you can at least see what it's gonna be with him in a few years. So I like the idea of going that route if they're gonna go with a forward. But to me, I think that it's going to be Alec or Emery. And I don't hate that. Like, listen, to me, whatever it is, it is. Like, I'm at the point where with Chris Drury, he's got my respect when it comes to drafting, and I trust him in the scouting department because they've done such a good job thus far in terms of the drafting ever since he's been at the helm, to where, and I know that's hard to gauge that because guys haven't got to the NHL yet outside of Othman's cup of coffee there, but based on what we've seen thus far in terms of their development path, we've seen a lot of progression from certain guys that I feel comfortable with what he does, where last year I'm throwing things about who they draft, which it's nonsense. Like, for right now, I think they go with a defenseman, though. That's my feeling. But again, maybe they trade up because they like a Cole Yzerman who falls. Maybe they like, I don't know, whoever it is that might fall in the draft. I really am not sure who else. Like, I think Yzerman's the only guy that I can envision falling far enough to where the Rangers are like, yeah, you know what? Let's package Kakko in the 30th pick and let's get going here and get a Cole Yzerman here. But I have no clue what direction they go in, which leads to my next bullet point, though, with the Kakko thing. Looks like Trouba and Kakko are being aggressively shopped, and there's a report that came out on Trouba's front a couple hours ago where the Rangers asked about his no trade list, and everyone is just like, well, that's just, basic procedures there with the NHL. He has a modified no trade clause. Of course they're going to ask him, which is true. But to me, something's fishy about that being out to the public, that they're like pressing him about it, because we don't hear this about Chris Kreider. Like, we're not hearing that, oh, well, the Rangers are pressing for Chris Kreider to submit his no trade list. We're not hearing about Igor Shesterkin's modified no trade list being sent in. Like, we're not hearing about this with other guys but Jacob Trouba, and we're seeing him get onto the trade boards, whether it's Saravalli, whether it's, I think Chris Johnson also said the Rangers are aggressively shopping him. There's something going on here deep with Jacob Trouba, and to me, I would be stunned at this rate if he's on the roster come opening night. And if he is, this might be an unpopular opinion. I think you guys strip him of the captaincy if he's here come opening night, because it is so bizarre to have all these trade rumors, and it's such a bad look to have all this trade speculation around your captain and to have him be here going into next season and just wipe your hands like nothing happened. At this point, with everything that's going on, I feel like you got to move him, or it's such a weird look for your franchise. Like, I can't be comfortable personally rolling into next season after all these trade rumors with Trouba being around, at least as a fan, and how that would be perception wise. That just doesn't sit right with me. Like, that sits like that's dysfunctional organization stuff, to be honest with you. Like, that's an organization that doesn't know what they're like. That's Buffalo Sabres stuff. Like, you can't roll into the season with Trouba here after all this speculation. And again, they're going to try and find the trade package. If they don't, they don't. But I don't know. To me, that just feels weird if you keep him around after all this. I don't know. I think there is legitimacy to the fact that teams do view him positively. And the whole thing on the Daily Faceoff with Frank Saravalli today was that teams view positively of Trouba because, one, he's a leader and wears the captaincy, which does give value to him, whether we agree or not that he should be the captain of the team. There is value there around the league. And then the other thing he was saying is that there's 2 years left on that deal, which doesn't make it as bad for a team if they are going to take him. And the main point that he made is, I don't know how teams view him this way, but again, God bless public perception for putting him this way. Teams allegedly view him as a guy that could potentially push their team into a playoff spot from teams that have missed the playoffs. So I'm looking at Detroit, which he's from the area, so there is a connection there. I'm looking at teams like Pittsburgh who have been linked to him. Maybe Ottawa, there's something there, but I don't think he'd have Ottawa. I think Ottawa would be a team on his no trade list. I think at least Detroit and Pittsburgh are teams that there's a conversation to be had there, which I would find it hysterical if he went to Pittsburgh after everything with the fan base there and the fact that they would be eating like 30% of their cap on Trouba, Carlson, and Letang. I mean, that would just be comedy to me as a Ranger fan, but I think there's legitimacy here. I truly do feel that there's just no way he's going to be on the roster, and they have to make changes either way on the back end. And Eric Gustafsson's not enough for me. Letting Eric Gustafsson walk and letting Zach Jones fill into the full-time role, that's not enough to get you over the hump. That's just not. So I really do think that he's going to end up getting moved this offseason. Like, I just don't see a world at this point where he does it, because outside of that, who are you moving? Ryan Lingren? Because that's my next bullet point, which it's weird. I'm going to be jumping around here with Kakko and Lingren, but apparently Lingren and the Rangers are really pushing for an extension. I'm going to give my opinion that I'm not a fan. Like, I'm really not a fan of the idea of dumping off Trouba's cap and then signing a net negative asset. Like, you're getting rid of a net negative and signing a net negative with some cap space that opens up. And I won't be as mad if it's a 2-year deal. Anything more than 2 years rubs me the wrong way personally, because I worry about a guy like that who looked broken down this past season at age 26. At age 26, he looked broken down. What is he going to look like even as soon as next year? And then if you commit to him 3 to 4 years, what is he going to look like at that time? I'm not comfortable with Ryan Lindgren being here for the long haul and making the mistakes that we've talked about with Girardi and Stahl ad nauseum on the channel here with Lindgren. I'm not comfortable with them doing that. And I know people are going to say, well, Stahl and Girardi got those contracts when they're older. Fair, but at the same time, Ryan Lindgren looks just as broken down right now, and I'm not for that. Like, I'm not for that. If it's 2x4, like I maybe predict it, I'm not gonna be happy, but I'm also not gonna be throwing things. My main issue also with extending Lindgren comes more with the fact that I know that this organization is just going to continue to trot him out there with Adam Fox when that they need to let go of that. Like, that's my biggest issue. If they signed him to a 2x4 or a 2x3.5, whatever it is, and he's playing third pair minutes, playing on the bottom pair, playing a shutdown type role, fine. I could at least live with that. I could live with that world. But what I can't live with is continuing to pretend that he's a top pair defenseman to play next to Adam Fox when Adam Fox needs better than Ryan Lindgren by his side. Like, I'm sorry. I get that they've been defensive partners dating back years at this point, even you could say a decade probably at this point, between playing at lower levels together and playing in the NHL level together. Adam Fox needs better than Ryan Lindgren next to him, and maybe at the very least they explore putting Miller with Adam Fox next to each other if they keep Lindgren around, and then maybe you get a guy like Carrier to play with Lindgren, which I'd be all for. We're hearing rumors about Sean Walker potentially being on the Rangers' radar, which I would love a Sean Walker. I just don't think he fit well in Colorado. I'm not really worried about the step back that he took there, but I could at least maybe live with that. But I just don't feel comfortable with him playing next to Adam Fox for another year or two when we've seen the movie before. Like, we don't need to go down this route here when there's options out there. You have one in-house in Keandre Miller to play up on the top pair. Jacob Chikrin's on the trade market. I'd love a Nikita Zadorov. I'd love a Matt Roy. I'd love there are just so many options in terms of defense that I would prefer over keeping Ryan Lindgren around. So I don't know. That's just me. It rubs me the wrong way if they go more than 2 years, but we'll see what the deal is there. It seems like it's going to happen. It's out of my control, and all I could root for is Ryan Lindgren to revert back to what he was in the previous few seasons, but I don't know how much I could count on it. That's the part that scares me, is that we're seeing regression this young. Who's to say he's going to play better? Revert back to what he was before the season? I don't know. To me, that's where my worry is. In terms of other news, like I said, Kakko's being shopped. A lot of that is mostly the fact that they're looking to trade up in the draft. If not, I've still been beating the drum that I'd love them to get a guy like Yanni Gourde at 50% retained. Maybe there's something there where you package Kakko and a pick, or Kakko another prospect and a pick to get Yanni Gourde at half retention. Would love them to explore that. I've been talking about getting Armia for a bit. You'd have to get retention there, of course, but I'd love the fit there of Armia in the bottom six to replace Kakko, and maybe you get a pick there with Armia. I don't know. And because Montreal, of course, would be interested with Jeff Gordon being there and drafting him and all. But again, we'll see what happens there. There was also other news I actually didn't have in my bullet point that I did want to address, because the New York Rangers hired their AHL coach, and I don't know why I forgot his name. Grant Patolny. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Grant Patolny, a guy that's coached at the college level. In terms of thoughts, don't really have much. My only thoughts are, like, we'll see what happens. Like, hopefully he could become the next coach for the Rangers at some point, because Laviolette, it's not going to last forever. Like, that's the NHL coaching life for you. They don't last forever here. Like, the shelf life is short with coaches at this rate. And for all we know, Laviolette's gone in 2-3 years at this point. Like, time moves quickly, and you need a guy that's going to develop into a coach with Knobloch out the door. And why not give that a stab? So I'm for it. Not really much thoughts there. And in terms of my final thoughts, we're seeing a lot of rumors about Guentzel and Kane still, about how Guentzel's the top priority. Larry Brooks dropping an article yesterday about how Kane's really on the Rangers' radar. And my thoughts on that are, and this is, again, gut feeling, no sources, I really am curious if they're going to try to find a way to fit both in. And hear me out for a second, because I know people are going to jump, well, how do you make that work cap-wise? Not this year, because I think this year, if you move Trouba, you could definitely make it work cap-wise. I think more of the question, and Kakko, of course, too. I think more of the question comes in, how do you do it next year? And my argument has simply been this. If you go the route of signing Guentzel to a long-term deal, and then Kane's here for, I don't know, a two-year deal, so he's under contract still for next year, maybe the Rangers go the route of having this deep forward group for this year, and it'll be really fun. And then next year, Chris Kreider, 2 years left on his deal at that point, maybe he becomes the cap casualty. Because if I were to picture a world where the Rangers got Kane and Guentzel, I would want the Rangers to put those two next to Zibanejad and then slot Chris Kreider down to the bottom six. Will that happen? I don't know, but that would be what I would want. And then maybe even, because Kreider and Trocheck have played well together, maybe you try putting Chytil back on that second line like he was there to start this past season. Put Trocheck and Kreider on that third line together with, I don't know, Othman to the right there, or maybe a guy like Cooley moves over to the right wing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas, or again, maybe an acquisition there. Talking about a very deep forward group at that point. So will that be what happens? I don't know. Again, it would be super fun. Again, it's gut feeling that maybe they do that, but I don't know if Guentzel's realistically going to be an option, because I do think he ends up in Vancouver, Carolina. Like, that's where my gut feeling is. But I also have the gut feeling that I think the Rangers are going to try at the very least to add both to the roster, which, again, that would be fun. And then Kreider becomes the cap casualty, and that gives you an additional 6.5 to, work with, to get Lafreniere on an extension, to get Miller and Shesterkin, because keep in mind, as of today at least, they would have, this is also assuming the cap jumps like we expect, that would put them at $37 million in cap space for next offseason, at least thus far. You subtract, you're probably playing with 29, 25 million left. That should be enough to keep those guys. But again, I don't know. I'm not in the front office to know any of that. I have no inside source, but it would be fun. It would be fun, wouldn't it, if they went that route? But again, that's more of a gut feeling. I don't know if they're going to go that way, but we'll have to wait and see. We're really getting into the thick of things starting tomorrow, of course, with the draft, and then it is going to progress in the free agency. So we will see what happens. That's going to be it for me. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below on all the points I hit. Don't forget to leave a like if you haven't. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live on the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.